Hey everyone, this is going to be a follow-up to part 4 of my The Solution series. So this is just going to answer some of the questions and comments I received in relation to that video. Namely, there were a lot of people who didn't understand the intent of talking about this as a contingency plan, basically a soft patriarchy. I admitted in the video that a patriarchy, whether soft or hard, is still gynocentric. Women are a resource, they are required for reproduction. As long as male reproductive success is determined by access to females, there's going to be some amount of gynocentrism, whether a hard patriarchy or a soft patriarchy. However, the only alternative to some form of patriarchy is feminism. So the point of presenting and advocating for a soft patriarchy isn't as a solution to gynocentrism. It is the lesser of the available evils in the event that shit goes down prematurely and we need to rebuild society in order to get ourselves back onto good footing, in order to advance technology and science, in order to eventually break out of the cycle. So I thought I made that clear in the video, but if I didn't, I do apologize. I also saw a disturbing number of comments talking about how they would rather have humanity go extinct than go back to any form of patriarchy. Nobody wins if we all go extinct. So if we eventually want to break out of the cycle, extinction is like the end of everything. That's not a solution. Death is not the solution to anything. Do I really need to elaborate why that's a terrible idea? Leaving women to their own devices and just moving on without them. Well, the problem is, without some form of asexual reproduction, artificial wombs, cloning, something, without some way for humanity to perpetuate itself, if you leave the women to their own devices, they will die. Now, I'm not saying that you have to personally get married, have a family, and perpetuate humanity. But in order to reach the solution, the actual solution, where we transcend the limitations of our biology through transhumanism, we need humans to be there to invent the technology to get us there. So what I'm talking about is essentially going 2 steps forward and 1 step back. As we go through these cycles, as we go from feminism through a collapse, back to a hard patriarchy, up to a soft patriarchy, then back to feminism. Every time this cycle repeats itself, we're going to get closer and closer to the actual solution, which is transhumanism. It may take 2 or 3 more cycles, I don't know. It depends on how severe the collapse is. Ideally, what we should strive for is to preserve as much technology as we can so that when society is restored to some functional capacity, within a soft patriarchy, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute, but the idea should be that we need to preserve our technology so that when we rebuild a viable society, we can then build on that technology as soon as possible. We need to maximize the time we have each cycle so we can get closer to the solution, so we can minimize the amount of cycles it will ultimately take. So priority 1 is to preserve technology so we lose as little ground as possible in the transition from feminism to a patriarchy. Priority 2 is to get the hell out of a patriarchy as soon as possible back into a soft patriarchy. And the reason why is in a hard patriarchy, you're going to have like warlords and shit killing each other, setting men against each other. There's going to be bloodshed everywhere. It's not going to be good times. I mean, women aren't going to be having a good time either, but it's not going to be a picnic for anyone. And in a soft patriarchy, it really is the best of both worlds as far as men go. Now, it doesn't mean it's perfect. It's not an ideal paradise for men. It's still gynocentric. Women are still hypergamous. You still have to deal with all the bullshit with human nature. But it's the least oppressive of the 3 possible systems. And that's the point. I'm not presenting this as a solution like, oh, here's the ideal society, everyone. No, it's not an ideal society. It's simply the lesser of the available evils. It's the least shitty of the 3 alternatives. So I'm not talking about promoting a collapse and a return to patriarchy. I'm talking about having it in the back of your mind as a contingency plan. And for the most part, this will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, society is going to default to a patriarchal system when the need arises. The presence of feminism is a first world problem. You have to have a certain amount of affluence and technological advancement to simply have a society that can support feminism. In fact, I've had retarded feminist commentators on my channel saying that, oh, because these countries have feminism and they're also so prosperous, there's somehow a link between feminism and prosperity. Well, there is a link, but it's not that feminism causes prosperity, it's that prosperity allows for feminism. You don't have feminism in third world shitty countries because they can't afford it. the women are far too dependent on the men to start bitching about microaggressions. But in first world countries where people's needs are met, the women can start getting bored and they can start bitching about bullshit. Feminism is a luxury. But a feminist society, almost by definition, is going to have the greatest amount of technological innovation. So, to kind of summarize my approach to this situation, I think of it as like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We want to move 2 steps forward every cycle, try to get closer to that ultimate goal. But if there is a collapse, we need to be prepared to make up ground as quickly as possible. So we go 2 steps forward, oh, there's a collapse, okay, we're back, all right, let's make up ground, okay, we're back where we were, let's push forward a little bit more, okay, there's another collapse. I don't know how many cycles it will take. It may take a few centuries, it may take more than 1 cycle, it may take a few cycles. But as long as we maintain our technology, as long as we build on the technology, we don't lose it like the way Rome did during the Dark Ages. As long as we can maintain this, keep it going, record, archive, build on our technology. And I think that would be easier because you can make an infinite amount of copies electronically. Whereas before, books and stuff had to be copied by hand by a scribe. So I actually think the risk of losing too much ground is fairly minimal. So the game plan during a collapse is to move back from a patriarchy to a soft patriarchy as quickly as possible, reestablish order, reestablish some kind of law, peace, so forth. But in order to maintain soft patriarchy and to keep it from sliding into feminism quickly, you need to keep bitches in check. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You don't want to go through the collapse, rebuild society, and then go right back to feminism. Then what the fuck were you doing? You're gonna have 2 collapses in a single lifetime. That's fucking stupid. And this could happen all within a single generation. You could have the society collapse, then it can be rebuilt, become a soft patriarchy, and the women who start bitching about rights and stuff like that could be the same women who caused the first collapse. Because if it only takes a couple decades to rebuild society and restore order, it could conceivably be the same women trying to repeat history. And it's going to be up to the men to tell them to shut the fuck up. This time we're going to do it right. We're not going to let this shit go to hell like it did last time. Another comment that I want to respond to are people who really strongly object to my so-called oppression of women in a soft patriarchy, basically taking authority away from women and giving it to men where it rightfully belongs. And people think that would be like the end of the world, or that would be so terrible that, people would rise up and there would be like this huge war. No, there wouldn't be. The French Revolution happened because people were starving to death. Most people don't even vote. They don't really give a shit, as long as their needs are met. If their needs are met, they really don't care about politics, as long as the politics isn't affecting them negatively. So if women's needs are being met in a soft patriarchy, they probably won't care about whether or not they can vote. Honestly, we should learn from history. We gave women the right to vote and it was fucking terrible. So we should learn our lesson the first time. You don't get to vote anymore. Fuck you. And now there are a minority of women that aren't just irredeemable pieces of shit. I call it the 4% rule. So this 4% of women that are actually very exceptional and may even have the mental capacity to appreciate the voting responsibility and be able to exercise that authority responsibly, I don't care. And I think if they really understood the situation, they wouldn't care either. If I was one of those women, and as a transgendered lesbian, I just want to say, if I was one of those women, and I was in that minority, I would appreciate the fact that the vast majority of my gender are fucking retards. And by giving them the power to vote, I'm fucking up society for everyone. So me being the strong, empowered, intellectually superior woman that I am, I'm going to forego my personal right to vote in order to keep that power and authority from the other 97% of retards that are going to fuck it up for everyone else. And you have women like Ann Coulter that agree that women shouldn't vote. And if women didn't vote, including herself, the world would be a better place. So, trying to white knight for these great, strong, intelligent women, and for the love of God, I'm so sick of hearing about Ada Lovelace and Mary Curie. I don't give a fuck. You're talking about a handful of women out of tens of millions of women. You can't take a handful of women and apply it to women in general. Women in general are fucking idiots, and you know it. And people will say oh, we just haven't given them the opportunity. We've been coddling them. Yes, we've been coddling them because that's how sexual reproduction works. You can't just assume that if we stop coddling them, they're suddenly going to drop the act. I mean, that's what I addressed in my magical thinking video. It's magical thinking. When women are allowed to succeed or fail, they fail because they're fucking idiots. They're children. This isn't an act. They're not pretending to be stupid. They really are stupid. And that small minority of women can't carry the entire gender. Like, if all the men died tomorrow and for some reason women could reproduce without them, society would devolve into a completely primitive shithole, like all matriarchal societies inevitably are. There may be a few exceptional women out there, but they're only a small handful. There's not enough genius in the female pool to go around to everyone. But, to assuage your fears, let me just kind of elaborate on what I'm talking about. Women shouldn't vote, but they shouldn't be mistreated either. And this isn't a problem. You see this already. Obviously, children can't vote, and they're not mistreated. They have rights. They're protected, but they can't vote. They don't have political rights. Also, and I Am Serious can confirm this, when you live in a foreign country and you're not a citizen of that country, you can't vote. But you can work, you can own property, you can do stuff, you still have rights as a human being, but you don't have political rights because you're not a citizen of that country. But it doesn't mean like you're being abused, that you're gonna like raise a rebellion and you're gonna march on the Capitol and murder people because you don't have these rights. You understand that this is the price you pay. You don't have political rights, but you're not being abused, you're not being mistreated. You just don't have all the rights of other citizens. And these aren't onerous, oppressive, exploitative things. These are simple, everyday things that people understand. The problem is, you've been brainwashed with all this egalitarian bullshit, talking about men and women are equal. No, they're not. And once you accept and appreciate the fact that men and women aren't equal, you realize you have to treat them differently. To treat men and women equally when they're completely different is fucking stupid. In the best case scenario, you oppress men because they do more and they're rewarded less for it. And in a worst case scenario, you're giving a fucking child a gun. And you're like, oh, well, we just let the child go, and oh my god, the child shot me. How could it do it? Well, it's a fucking child. Why did you give it a gun? Oh, I thought they were equal. No! Stop giving children guns. They're just gonna kill people. And they don't even know what they're doing. They can't even be held responsible for what they're doing. Stop it. Stop it. You're part of the problem. So hopefully that clears things up. I'm not trying to advocate for a patriarchy as a solution. That's why this was included as a separate video called Contingency Plans, not included in the long-term goal. Patriarchy, whether soft or hard, is not a solution to gynocentrism. It is gynocentric. Everything is gynocentric because women, because sexual reproduction. And if the only alternative is extinction, then there really is no alternative other than gynocentrism. Because even if like 50% of men decide, hey, fuck it, I'm going to be MGTOW, I don't give a shit, I'm not going back to patriarchy, I'm just going to live my life and blah, blah, blah. Cool. In one generation, you'll all be dead and humanity will move on without you and the patriarchy will be there regardless. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen so quickly that anybody who's hearing the sound of my voice is actually going to be a part of that solution. This is hundreds of years into the future. But I'm just saying, like, in the grand scheme of things. There you go. So that's all I have to say. I understand, you know, most MGTOW don't give a shit about this sort of big picture societal stuff. They're just trying to live their life. They're trying to better themselves, do their thing. And that's why, you know, the videos about immediate solutions is important. And to a lesser extent, the long-term goals regarding self-actualization and financial independence. And if that's where you end, if you're like, that's all I care about, I don't give a shit about like the larger stuff, that's fine. You get what you want out of these videos. Maybe not everything's for you. Maybe I'm not speaking to you all the time. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm going to close this video now. I hope you enjoyed the series. If you have any further comments or concerns, let me know in the comment section. I'll try to answer them, but I think this is going to be the last video in the series. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.